And as we cultivate it, there's another aspect, and actually it's the fifth aspect. We need to learn to preserve our worship. And that is very hard to cultivate our worship. This is what the Scriptures tell us. It says, guard your soul. You say, what do you mean by that? Well, look back at Ephesians chapter 4 with me, because I really think something we don't do is guard ourselves. It says in Ephesians 4, verse 26, be angry and do not sin. Do not let the sun go down in your wrath. Verse 27 of Ephesians 4, nor give place to the devil. Did you know if we leave unguarded places in our life, we can be robbed of the spirit of worship just like that? You see, what do you mean by that? Well, 1 Peter 5 says, our adversary, the devil, prowls around like a roaring lion, seeking to devour us. Satan wants to rob us of what we were created to do, and that is to worship God. What are some ways he can rob us? Well, here's one. Now, this might bother some of you, but it's true. Did you know there's no better way to erase worship than to turn on the television the second you walk in the door of the house? Have you ever thought about that? Have you ever thought of how absolutely antithetical, absolutely diametrically opposed the television, which is the fountain and the river of the world, and the worship of God are? They're at the other ends of the spectrum. I think about how Sunday afternoon sports in general, with the incessant beer commercials, the inane chatter, and the surefire flattening out of our spiritual brain waves. I mean, so many people, they go right from the worship of God to that. And they just go from up here down flatland again. They go right back. And they grieve and quench the Holy Spirit. Why? Because it's just impossible to maintain that level of communion with God and just mindlessly go into just the flow of the world. We need to guard our soul. We need to encourage our family. I think about how many fathers, their kids say, Daddy, will you look at my Sunday school paper? And the dad says, just a minute, wait till halftime, or wait till the next commercial. I don't have time. We need to seek God completely. So many people sit in church fretting because they've already missed part of something they wanted to see on TV, and they wonder when it's going to be over. They never get anything out of the service. They don't come to meet God. They came to check it off. They're supposed to go. My heart is so drawn to when I go to services overseas. They don't even have clocks. They don't have schedules. The people, it's the biggest thing of the week. That's why they do it every day. They get together every day in Russia. They have services every day. Somewhere in Volgodonsk, our sister church, they have a service going on every day of the week. Why? Because it's so important. Now, everybody can't go to all of them because they don't have cars. But it's the biggest thing in their life. Do you know what, in America? This is one piece of the 168-hour week, and it better be 1 hour of it. Right? Because I've got a schedule. And we have scheduled God almost out of our lives because we are not preserving our worship. We need to purge our spirit. Have you ever tried dieting your spirit? Stay away from any junk food of the soul, any cancer-causing agents, any highly worldly cholesterol that hardens our spiritual arteries, as someone put it. We should seek the Lord so much that we will actually go on a spiritual diet. In fact, someone caught me on this. I asked them if they saw the new Clorox spray cleaner. And I didn't see it on television. I saw it in the Better Homes and Gardens. But I said, have you seen the new Clorox cleaner? Because they told me they got sick somewhere. And I said, you should have sprayed the new Clorox cleaner around. They said, we haven't watched TV for 10 weeks. I don't know about that cleaner. And I thought, what a blessing. But, you should go to the store at least and get the Clorox spray so you don't get sick, You don't have to fast from the store. But we need to also not only guard our soul, encourage our family, seek God completely, and purge our spirit. We need to avoid overexposure. I know people you ever seen people that have a high skin cancer risk? I mean, those people, they have this big, hat on, and they've got all kinds of sunscreen on. They don't want to get skin cancer. Some of us get ready for the sun, but do we stay away from the exposure to the deadliness that eats at our souls, that distracts our worship? The world will distract, deaden, and deflate the welling up of our souls to worship God unless we avoid overexposure to it. Well, here's another one. We need to guard our worship from distraction. We need to realize that if we don't feel like worship, maybe we've had so many disappointing experiences in worship that we don't even think it's worship, that we need to guard it and say, Lord, and I'm going to close with this. Look at Psalm 42. That's kind of where we began in this process. But it's really guarding our worship by making this choice that David made in Psalm 42. And this is what he said. As the deer pants for the water brook, so pants my soul for you, O God. What he's talking about is that out in the desert, you know the story, the caravans used to carry these little animals that could smell water, and they'd carry them with them, and when they ran out of water for the camels, they'd let one loose, and it would run off, and it always would run toward a reservoir, or toward an oasis, because they could smell the water. And what's neat is these little creatures have such a thirst that there is nothing that will satisfy that thirst but water. David said, God, make me, verse 2, thirst for God. That's worship. Thirst for the living God. That's reality. When shall I come and appear before God? That is experiencing, cultivating, preparing for, and guarding worship. Having a heart's desire to worship God.